This is the story of Moses and the Pharaoh. One day, an old man named Shaul said to his grandson Simeon, "It is time you learn the story of our people. I want to tell you about a tragic time for the Israelites, the time we spent in Egypt, and a great man named Moses who saved us from slavery." "I was only a boy then, just about your age," Shaul started. "All of the Israelites were slaves to the terrible Pharaoh, ruler of Egypt. Everyone, even the children, worked all day and into the night making bricks to build Pharaoh's city. One day, I saw Moses walking proudly into the Pharaoh's palace," said Shaul. "I was such a curious boy then. I dropped all my work and crept away. I wanted to hear what this brave man had to say. 'Let God's people go,' Moses told Pharaoh. 'Set them free or God will surely punish you.' Moses stood firmly before Pharaoh and his guards," Shaul said. But Pharaoh did nothing. He got up and walked into the palace." Shaul continued his story. "Days later, I woke up to hear a strange rumbling through the city. When I listened more closely, it sounded like croaking. I looked outside and saw the land was covered with frogs. They were in the river, over the roads, on the rooftops, in the wells, and all over Pharaoh's palace. It was an amazing sight." "Where did they come from?" Simeon asked his grandfather. "Moses had warned Pharaoh that many terrible plagues would fall over Egypt if God's people were not set free," Shaul explained. "This was one of those plagues. It was not the first sign that God sent to Egypt, and that would not be the last. Pharaoh promised to set the Israelites free if only Moses would ask God to take the frogs away. But when the frogs were gone, Pharaoh broke his promise. God sent swarms of flies upon Egypt, and he made the Egyptians' cattle sick. He pounded the land with hailstorms, and he took away the sunshine. Each time these tragedies fell on Egypt, Moses went to the Pharaoh and demanded, 'Let God's people go.' At last, God's powers became too much for Pharaoh and his people," Shaul told his grandson. "He agreed to let us leave Egypt. Moses came to bring my family the good news. 'We must leave now,' he said, 'as quickly as we can.' We left Egypt with nothing and journeyed into the desert," Shaul said. "It was hot and it was dry, but at least we were free from Pharaoh and his soldiers. Then one day we saw an army of Egyptians coming after us. Pharaoh had changed his mind again. Pharaoh wanted to bring us back into Egypt, but Moses was our leader and God was our savior. I saw a miracle that day," Shaul added. "With the Pharaoh and his men chasing us, we came upon the sea. We had nowhere to run. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea and the waters divided. Once we had crossed, Moses turned his back toward the sea and raised his hand again. The water flowed over Pharaoh and his soldiers." "We were safe," said Shaul, "and we continued our difficult journey into the desert." "What happened? How did you survive?" asked Simeon. "It is not a happy story, but I will tell you now," said Shaul. "We walked into the hot desert with very little to eat for many months. We suffered greatly, but we still sang to God and prayed, and he provided food for us. Then one day, Moses told everyone to wait for him, and he climbed to the mountaintop. He said he was going to talk to God. He was gone for a long time. Some of the Israelites did not want to wait, and finally Moses returned with 2 tablets containing the laws of God that had been spoken to him. They were the 10 commandments from God, and we shall follow them today." "I know them all, grandfather," said Simeon proudly. "You taught them to me." "We followed the laws that God had commanded," Shaul continued, "and we followed Moses as he led us through the desert. God took care of us. He brought us to this place which we called Israel. It is our promised land, country, and our home." "God watched over his children in the desert," said Shaul. "He watches over us wherever we are. Once we had a great hero, Moses, to remind us of that, and now we have each other. We have the 10 commandments to guide us, and we have a very important story to tell our children and grandchildren." This has been Storytime. Thank you.